From ABC7 New York, this is Eyewitness News Extra Time.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Maybe this was the first time you've ever considered ALS and what it is. Yankee legend Lou Gehrig, just 36 years old, considered by many to be the Yankees' best first baseman ever, standing before 62,000 fans at the old stadium to say farewell to them and the game he loved.
Until a cure!
Or maybe this is the first time you thought about ALS, watching someone you know or someone you admire dump a bucket of ice water on their head to complete the Ice Bucket Challenge. Maybe you participated yourself.
I choose to show up for life every day and not worry about tomorrow. I figure that tomorrow will come with its own set of challenges, so I will just stay present in today.
Tonight, we want this to be the reason you now think about ALS. A young father named Brian Jeansonne, robbed of the control of his body in the prime of his life by this merciless disease, but never losing his spirit. Instead, he's finding beauty in this life, enveloped by the love of his family. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. I'm Bill Ritter. Special because we're focusing the entire show on ALS. May is ALS Awareness Month, sometimes referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. A person's brain loses connection with the muscles, slowly taking away their ability to walk, talk, eat, and eventually to breathe. The hard reality, there is no cure for ALS, at least not yet. But among many, there is hope, and it comes from medical experts and some of the people who have it, like the man you're about to meet. Brian Jeansonne and his family were enjoying their lives in the heart of New Orleans in September 2019, when Brian noticed something off about his routine morning jog. His foot began to drag while he was running. 8 months later, in April 2020, at the height of the COVID pandemic, and at the age of just 43, Brian was diagnosed with ALS. Doctors told him he had only 2 to 5 years to live. At one point, doctors presented him with a terrible choice. They could make him as comfortable as possible as his body transitioned, or they could perform a tracheotomy, and he could go on a ventilator full time. So Brian whispered the names of his children to himself, and then chose to get trached. Since then, Brian has lost most control of his body. He gets around on a motorized wheelchair. He needs around-the-clock care, but he can communicate. And with the help of artificial intelligence and a process called voice preservation, Brian can type words with a camera that tracks his eye movements, and that allows them to function like a cursor. The machine plays out his words.
This is a girl's trail.
And now, Brian talks to the world about his journey with ALS through TikTok videos and at speaking events. In those talks, his message is clear. He does not dwell on the disease, but rather focuses on living for his family. Joining us now, Brian Jeansonne. And Brian, it is good to see you, and I thank you for doing this. You have an interesting way of communicating through AI and through a computer, and we're going to begin with that right now, and I'm going to start with a question, and thank you for joining us. Not everyone who's diagnosed, of course, with ALS goes as public as you have and your family has. So what motivated you to become not just a public spokesperson about this disease, but a kind of teacher, I think, from after reading all your stuff, for dealing with life and the curveballs it can serve up?
I don't really consider myself a spokesperson, and I am not really interested in being a spokesperson. I am, however, very interested in helping others navigate the pitfalls in life. I truly believe that life is absolutely beautiful and life is full of chaos. And we don't get to choose when we get the beauty or the chaos. I think what motivates me is the idea that we know that life is not fair, but we still expect it to be. I think that is the optimist in us. But tragedy does not have to be the end for us. When we realize that the beauty and the chaos is just what life is, then we are free to be present in it all.
You know, that's beautiful, and I totally appreciate that. And when I said spokesperson, I meant that in the highest degree of my respect for you. after reading up on you and watching some of the interviews you've done, I think the role you have, if I can use that word, as a guide perhaps for the public, but more importantly, as a guide for your own family too. I was so impressed with you as a dad and as a husband.
My family is the only reason I chose to get trait. They're my reason for continuing. I feel that I still have things to impart to my kids. So yes, before anything else, I am here for my family.
Well, that comes through. It comes through in what I hear in that voice that you've managed to get on a computer. Your attitude about life, Brian, is just so inspiring. It's more than that, but that's the perfect word for it. You're embracing a mentality that you're not fighting ALS, but instead you seem to be viewing this as living your lives, journeying with ALS, on a journey with it. And most inspiring, you're allowing, as in your words, the journey to form us for the better. Wow.
I love that you picked up on that. Yes, I don't use any type of war language. I'm not fighting for my life or battling. I am not a warrior. I'm just a dude who got dealt a bad hand. And I have been through enough in my life to know that the only way we are formed or grow in this life is through great suffering and great love. This is the most suffering I have experienced in my life, and I realize that this is an opportunity to wither away or a time to grow. I choose growth.
You're also involved in this great love too. You know, it's a great challenge, and as you said, a great love. You were diagnosed back in 2020, 4 years ago right now, for a disease that has a life expectancy of 2 to 5 years. I don't want this to seem so simplistic, but I have to ask you this because I think a lot of people would watch this and say, I'm asking that question, the audience. How do you keep your spirits so high?
I have 5 kids. I have a lot to live for. I made a decision when I was diagnosed that I would play the woe is me card for just a little while and then I would get to living. The truth is that I now wear my mortality in my body. I am aware every night I might not wake up in the morning. So I choose to show up for life every day and not worry about tomorrow. I figure that tomorrow will come with its own set of challenges, so I will just stay present in today.
We all could learn from that. I do want you to explain the role of artificial intelligence, AI, in helping you communicate, not just with me and everyone else, but your family. And how much has that helped you live with this? What would it be like if you didn't have that machine?
Losing my ability to speak was the scariest and worst loss for me. The use of technology is a literal lifesaver for me. To be able to continue conversing with my wife and kids, and AI has added the incredible benefit of replicating my own voice. Honestly, without the access to technology, and if I weren't able to continue to communicate, I don't know that I would have chosen to get trached and continue living.
I know how hard that is. And Christy can tell you what this means later. My brother got trached when he was in the hospital and didn't make it, but I'll tell you something, it gave him an opportunity. And I get it. I totally get it, Brian. I have so many things to ask you, but I know that this is a lot of work for everyone, and I appreciate it because you're giving everyone a great lesson in how to live. So what's your message and advice to the 5,000 or so people every year who will be diagnosed with ALS?
You got dealt a bad hand, and these next few years are going to be difficult. I can't encourage you enough to take this opportunity and this time to show up for your life. Every single day, spend time with the ones that you love and be present.
Not so sure anyone could say something more beautiful than that, Brian. The admiration I think people will get from hearing you, hearing your voice, seeing what you've done for your family, especially as a dad of 3. I have just the utmost respect for you, and what your love is for your children is beyond what I could describe. Brian Jeansonne, thank you so very much. Fingers crossed for a longer life and for contributing to the people that you love so very much and giving inspiration to every one of us. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm just a dude who was dealt a bad hand. We're doing our host show today on this ALS disease and what can be done about it. And boy, what an inspiring young man Brian is. Intense research now being conducted in so many areas that are related to ALS, from basic science seeking the roots of the disease to therapy development and to find effective treatments. Scientists are testing medications and treatments tested for potential benefits in ALS. A lot going on. Since the inception, the Muscular Dystrophy Association has poured more than $176 million into ALS research, $11 million in just the last 5 years. Joining us now with more and a look into this, the quest for a cure, Dr. Matthew Harms, medical advisor for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Dr. Harms, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Bill, it's a real pleasure to be here to talk to you today about amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
Okay, so we'll just say ALS. Tell us what actually causes this. Let's get it right from the beginning. What causes this?
Absolutely. So ALS is a relatively complex disease, and our research indicates that it's rarely just one thing that goes on to trigger ALS. We know that environmental exposures can play a role. We know that lifestyle factors like smoking or the amount of exercise you get can play a role. But the factor that we know the absolute most about, and the one that we understand the best, is genetics. We have discovered over the course of the last 30 years around a dozen genes that when they're mutated, DNA in the human genome that when it's mutated can go on to lead or cause ALS.
Genetics. So I know people are here to be with us later, and he was just telling me that he has 5 or 6 people in the family that had this and didn't realize it back in the family tree. And so that's a big deal, right? The whole genetics of it.
It is, yeah. So today we can find a causative gene mutation in about 15% of people who have ALS. That's more likely if you have a family history of ALS. But in fact, 1 in 10 people who have no family history of ALS turn out to have one of these genes. The good news is that these genes are where we're making lots of progress in terms of therapeutic development, and where everyone is the most optimistic for a cure within the next several years.
All right, so what are the chances of that? What can really be done? That's, I think, what people really want to hear, because nothing has really been done since it was first discovered, right?
So we do have several FDA-approved medications that slow the disease.
Slow it. Yeah.
But they slow it. But you're right, it doesn't stop the disease or arrest the symptoms. But we're getting closer. For example, the most recently approved FDA-approved medication is called tofersen. And this is what I call a molecular smart bomb. It goes into the spinal fluid, it diffuses into the neurons, and then it sticks to the gene that causes ALS in about 2% of people. So it's not a drug that's applicable to lots of folks, but in those individuals who have the mutation in the SOD1 gene, it can be really quite effective. We've seen it slow the disease in some, we've seen it arrest the disease entirely in others, and in a small subset of people, we've actually seen situations where people are regaining small amounts of strength. So we are getting much closer to being able to do something really sizable for ALS.
But this is such a slow process. What is the 2%? That's the one who get something back?
The 2% are the individuals who have the gene mutation that this drug will work for. But the techniques that we're developing for that particular gene are now also being developed for all the other genes that cause ALS, and even in some circumstances for people who don't have a genetic mutation. So what we're learning in the genetic forms of ALS are immediately being applied to the broader group of patients with ALS, and will hopefully find a mechanism that would be able to slow it down in everyone and not just in those with a genetic explanation.
Have just about 30 seconds left. We saw the inspiration and the positive thinking that our patient Brian has. Are you, as a scientist, are the rest of the scientists that excited about possibilities? Or how do you keep going every day?
Well, we are for sure inspired by our patients. I see patients several days a week, and it's those days that inspire me and motivate me to go back to the lab, to go back to our research teams, to really double down and do whatever we can to try to bring about more effective therapies. And that's happening at academic centers and research companies and patient organizations all around the world in a way that it never has really before. And so I think we are quite a bit more optimistic than at any point in the history of ALS.
It's good to hear. It's also good to hear you say that, and we really appreciate it. Dr. Matthew Harms, good luck to you, sir. Keep inspiring people. Hopefully we'll get a cure.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Now it's time to take the ice bucket challenge. Are you ready?
Here we go. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Oh, hey, that's real ice. Frozen at 4. Really refreshing.
Oh my God, it's freezing.
That's Lee Goldberg, Liz Cho, and David Navarro participating in the Ice Bucket Challenge. It was 10 years ago in August 2014. The viral challenge raised awareness and money for a great good cause, ALS research. Coming together with a goal of finding a cure for ALS, that is the focus of the MDA's annual Wings Over Wall Street Gala. In its 24 years of existence, generous supporters have helped to raise $13 million for ALS research. It has been my honor to MC the event for many years, and I will do so again Thursday, June 6th. I invite you to join us now with more. Right now, the great co-founder of the Muscular Dystrophy Association's Wings Over Wall Street, Mr. Warren Schiffer. And Warren, I really do appreciate you being here.
Bill, it's a pleasure to see you, and I'm so grateful to ABC for inviting me and to take the time to connect with the public and tell these important stories. And give ALS its due. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Let's ask first about the event that I'm going to host in June. It's quite moving and emotional. I mean, I think you know that. You've had several family members who have died, so this is a thing very close to your heart. But you turned it into action. You turned your sorrow into action. You know, the really incredible thing as I reflect over all these years is getting this horrible diagnosis, being in the doctor's office, Dr. Jeffrey Rothstein's office at the Packard Center for ALS Research, one of the research centers we fund, and to have my wife say, what could we do, right? What could we do about this? As opposed to, as Brian eloquently put, take the violin out. And it was there that this seed germinated. And instead of being a victim, my late wife, Tony, decided, let's do something about this.
He said, no, woe is me. That's not how he was going to live. Your wife was like that as well, I assume.
Yeah, she was incredible. There's so many interesting similarities. I'm jealous with the AI. It would have made such a big difference.
It's pretty new, though.
Yeah, for sure. And so, it was a very long time ago that my late wife, Tony, had the disease. And she was too young and too connected with family, with our relationship, to die. She would have died months after diagnosis, not years, and decided to get trached. Her progression was incredibly fast, going to the point where she couldn't move, she couldn't talk. She was trached, so she couldn't breathe without the support. And it got down to a tiny bit of eye movement was the only communication. And yet she always had hope. It was...
I do a lot of. I'm glad you're here to share this with us. I do a lot of events for charities and diseases that, with the public's help and science help, has really been cut down. I think about breast cancer especially, even lung cancer. Not with this, and yet you have clearly hope. Otherwise, you wouldn't be running this organization like this.
I certainly made a commitment that until a cure was found, I'd do whatever little I could do. But it's really about these stories. It's about people. It's about love, right?
It is.
So
ALS is underfunded. Believe it or not, it's underfunded. So we need to attract the brains. Maybe it's one of your children or someone out there who's watching, their children who have an interest in science and want to change the world. And so we raise money to fund research so that we can attract these amazingly smart people, and maybe a cure will happen tomorrow.
About 10 seconds. Tell people how they can donate.
Listen, it's real simple. We'd love it. I'd be honored if you would go to mda.org/wings and donate whatever you can.
Okay.
$1, $5, $1 million, whatever you can.
We'll take the $1 million, that'd be good. Warren, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Very brave of you to do this, and I appreciate this, and I'll see you in
thanks
June.
for everybody for watching. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And that wraps up this very special edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. We thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bill Ritter, and if you want to join in the fight against ALS and donate, head to mda.org/endals. We'll be back here tonight on Eyewitness News at 11. Hope to see you then. Until then, have a safe evening, and love the ones you're with.